Do you really want to make amazing videos, but sometimes feel like you put too much pressure on yourself to actually do so? Do you sometimes feel like you don't have the right gear to make the videos you want to make, or sometimes feel like you maybe have too much and you don't really know which gear to choose for which project? Do you sometimes just feel like you don't know where to start and you really want to make great stuff, but you're just like, what do I do? I have something to share with you today that really could solve your filmmaking problems. And not only that, also help you out a lot with creative procrastination. But to do that, I need to take you to a couple of weeks back when we were celebrating my cousin's birthday on a camping trip.
Grease me in the morn, despite voices going hush-a-bye, lullaby, nothing's in the sky, so treat the day as night. And ports of call, wishing for some land, some shore. End up going to fly, shut to cry, huckleberry sigh, you'll bring me something more. Whisper me a song you like, and I might cast your tales from wishing trees and the burden of my life. Tell me, how long has it been? Did we wake up in every time I think to go, then I take a look around. Hear some promises about your stay the rain till snow. And April says everything she said she meant, and all the while the world I would turn to the open says everything unspoken.
Now, research has shown that there is a thing called choice overload. Choice overload is the negative consequence of having too many options. The human brain is shown to not actually be good with that much choice, especially on a regular basis. And when we can apply this to filmmaking, having too many options, having too much choice can often be paralyzing. The research has shown that choice overload can have negative effects on both satisfaction and motivation. So who wants to be a filmmaker with low motivation and then poor satisfaction on everything that they make? Doesn't sound very fun. Now, choice overload is a natural thing that comes with having loads of gear. So how do we overcome this? Do we sell all of our gear? Hopefully not. Because sometimes we do want to have all of the gear available to make that showpiece thing that we want to. A quick and easy solution is creative limitation. What creative limitation is purposefully restricting the tools that you have to make a thing. It could also be purposefully restricting the time you have within which to make it, or the location. In this case, I want to talk about specifically restricting the tools that you have to make said creative thing. And what I did to make this video is choose one lens, and it happened to be the smallest lens that I have, which is the 50mm. So my entire setup was one camera, the Sony a7S III, and one lens, very small one, which was the 50mm. 1.8. I'll talk about that specific setup and why I think it's a good one a little bit later in the video. But first, let's talk about how creative limitation actually solves this problem. As soon as I knew that I was going to be shooting it on this camera and lens combination, it relieved the pressure of making something amazing. And the reason it did that is because my brain knew that I have a pretty good excuse. Now, whilst excuses are often a bad thing, in this sense it's actually a good thing. Because I can tell myself, well, the reason that this video is like this is because I shot it on a 50mm. So if I put on my YouTube channel something like video shot entirely on 50mm lens, it's a very gear specific video. It's a video that isn't showing this is a Thomas Alex Norman or this is a Portal Creative video that's kind of signed by me as like the representation of what I can do as a filmmaker. It's just, this is a video that was an experiment where I limited myself to one lens. And as soon as I know that, it's like, okay, let's actually have fun with this. This isn't some high pressure thing. This is like an exercise. This is something that I can just go out there, have fun with, and play around the limitations of what my gear gives me. So that's how creative limitation can help you with your creative motivation. How it can help with your satisfaction is that when you watch that piece back, you can also say that, this is not bad for actually just using 50mm. This actually kind of works for just using 50mm. You're not going to say to yourself, well, actually the story was a bit off and the colors, I didn't like them, and why did I not get that wide shot when I wanted to, or all these things that we can tell ourselves in post, which can sometimes be helpful and critical and other times just be purely negative. When we have creative limitation, when we know something was made under a creative limit, you can kind of look back at your work with a sense of positive critique. And the reason for this is you're not judging yourself as this is what you're capable of. You're just reviewing your work as something that was done within a set limit. So you can say, okay, when I'm doing these 50mm shots, now I know I should probably get further back than normal because this lens is actually quite close. And if I want to get an establishing shot, I have to really be mindful of that and get back very far to actually get an establishing scene. Otherwise everything can feel too close, for example. You can therefore be quite specific in how you critique your work, rather than having your work somehow reflect yourself and then judging yourself. This then segues quite nicely into a feeling of progression. How you can get a feeling of progression with creative limitation is by setting yourself a variety of different challenges. So let's say one day you do this challenge, you're right, this is the 50mm challenge. The next little trip I go on, I'm going to purely film this with a 50mm lens. That's going to have its own set of challenges, its own set of benefits. Let's do it. Then the next weekend you can say, all right, this time I'm going to give myself 2 hours to make a video. So you're using now a time creative limit. You're saying, right, I'm going to get out to the local park or wherever is within my radius. I'm going to put on a timer and I have 2 hours to capture different things. When the timer goes off, I'm done. Doesn't matter where I'm at. And then I'm going to edit that video. You could also set yourself a timer for the editing as well. Then you're creating this kind of weekend challenge for yourself to make a video. By setting yourself small creative challenges, you can really benefit your filmmaking by not only getting yourself to actually do it, you can also break your filmmaking apart. You can give yourself kind of a color grading challenge. You can give yourself a composition challenge. And this is exactly what we do inside the Live Capture Academy. When designing the program, I really had to take a step back and think, how am I actually going to get the members of this program to actually make videos? Because I can just give them all of the info that they need, but if they're not going to put this info into practice, they're not going to learn anything. They can watch a tutorial for 20 minutes and then, you can watch another video or go on TikTok for half an hour and you've forgotten you even watched the tutorial in the first place, let alone know how to implement those things. So it had to be centered around creative limitation. It had to be centered around limitation of time, limitation of objective, limitation of goal, which would actually then get members making the videos that I set them each week. And it's proven to be really effective. The program's got a 4.9 out of 5-star rating because it gets people making videos. And that feeling of making videos is far better than just watching a great and entertaining course. The feeling of satisfaction you get when you've actually got out there and you've made something, you've come home and you've edited it, you're really starting to work on your creative goals. So now let's talk about the format of 50mm and why I actually like that as a method of learning filmmaking and getting yourself more motivated to actually shoot videos. So This is a fairly small 35mm lens, and it's quite weighty. You can see it's quite big, and if you put that on the end of a camera, it's a bulky thing. The camera's going to be around this big, and that's not even that big of a lens. When you compare that to the 50, when you actually put that on a camera, the camera feels like it hasn't actually got that much sticking out of it, meaning that you're almost, not quite, but almost walking around with just a camera body. And that makes the whole thing fit in much smaller bags. You can have it around your neck without feeling like it's kind of protruding too much or weighing you down. The other thing is when you're filming people, when you're filming friends and stuff, it doesn't feel like this huge camera that is intimidating with this big lens pointing in their face. That just creates a slightly more calming atmosphere for everyone who's around you as well. It's kind of like the smaller your camera, the less intimidating it is. So not only does it encourage you to actually get out and use it because it's not this bulky, heavy thing, but it can also really help to give the sensation that you're just making something for fun rather than making something professional, for example. Another physical thing about this lens is that typically they go down to quite a low f-stop. So this one goes down to 1.8. You'll find most 50mm on the market do around the same, 1.8, even 1.4. What this means is that you can get a really nice depth of field, a nice bokeh in your shots, which makes everything look quite cinematic compared to most zoom lenses, which might go down to 2.8 or 4, for example, and it's hard to get a really nice looking depth of field with those lenses. The most important thing about a 50mm lens, and the reason I think it's a great lens to do a challenge with, is the focal length is zoomed in enough, it's cropped enough for you to be selective with what you're shooting. And that is essentially what filmmaking is. Filmmaking is choosing what you capture. If you have a GoPro or phone set on the kind of the wide lens that a lot of people do now, you're getting such a wide vision, such a wide field of view, you're not actually selecting what you show your audience. You're just turning either one way or the other way and capturing everything. All right, so a quick demonstration of this concept. Right now I'm shooting at 24, so it's not crazy wide, but it's definitely pretty wide. It's a focal length that a lot of people will shoot at. And there's not that much choice as to what I'm getting in my shot, especially when I'm shooting more of a landscape. There's not too much foreground, background going on. I mean, I can point over here to select this part of the scene, this part, but in terms of walking the audience through a scene, the options are actually quite limited here. Okay, so now I've got the 50mm on, and you can see immediately it's that much closer that I'm automatically selecting this plant to shoot. So if I point a tiny bit to the right, the scene is completely changed. A tiny bit to the left, the scene is completely changed again. A tiny bit to the left, the scene has changed again. So this forces me to be selective in what I'm shooting. This forces me to start building up a picture that I am choosing to show my audience rather than just showing them everything at once. So 50mm is a great focal length because you have to be selective. You have to choose what's in the frame. However, it's wide enough to not be a completely different experience. It's wide enough to still get some mid shots, some wide shots if you stand far away enough. And I find it's just really easy on the eye, especially in combination with that low aperture. You end up being able to really paint the picture of what's happening in the scene around you. So let's say there's a campfire. Rather than just filming the whole campfire and getting all of your friends in one shot as if it's like a team photo, you're filming a close-up of the flames. You're filming close-ups of the food. You're getting a mid-shot of your friends enjoying the food with maybe smoke from the barbecue in the background. Maybe you're getting some atmospheric shots, shooting the trees, getting shots of the smoke through the leaves. Your eye, as the filmmaker, is building the picture up for the audience. You're guiding them through a journey. You're guiding them through a micro-narrative which takes them from A to B. You're telling a story. Now, I actually set myself another challenge on my brother's birthday, which was to film that event with my RX 100, like a Sony compact camera. And I'm gonna make another video breaking that down as well, and I'm gonna touch on how to film a video when it's not your #1 priority. So you're gonna learn some tips about how to have your camera there, how to film the right moments without getting obsessed and feeling like you're actually missing the experience of what's going on because you're stuck behind your camera the whole time. That's a really important element when it comes to capturing your life. So I'll see you in that video very, very soon. If you're watching this when I've already made it, I will link it in the description or somewhere on the screen now. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's sparked some ideas for you in terms of how to use creative limitation to your benefit. And with that said, stay creative, keep filming. Bye-bye.